Inside at last.
Welcome, fellow Teffers, to Inside at Last, the one and only thief dedicated podcast. My name is Alex, and today I am joined by Jiggity Jake and Saturday Seth. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Always this question irritates me. And we already have some Teffers in the chat. We are live again, and that means Teffers Talk or Original Mission. And sadly, it's an original mission because right yesterday, Daniel, Tron, and Nick wanted, to make me angry because they dropped, or Nick dropped a new mission, and Daniel Tron dropped the amazing fan video he made, which is strange somehow. And we could have had topics for Teffers Talk finally, but we had to decide on an original mission, and the mission is Kidnap. You've just seen the briefing video, and I hope we are good to hear for everybody. Please let us know in the chat. And thanks for joining us. So, guys, one of you, do you guys want to explain what the mission is all about? Hello?
Hey, sorry. Yeah, so in this one, Garrett has been sent to, he's basically just ridden the Cetus, and he's gone to Markham's Isle to capture Cavador and get critical information about Karis' plans, along with his diary.
And I was always wondering, like, what do they actually, what do they want from this? What is the promise that they make themselves? I never really got how why they should, what even if they know, what would they do?
Well, I think that they're hoping against hope, right? Like, they're hoping that Cavador has some kind of information, and it's Victoria's guy, Larkspur, right? Who has info about Cavador.
Maybe.
It does feel kind of like you're kind of on a wild goose chase, I think, at this point in the story. Like the thread between Karis and what you're doing now kind of feels a little bit pulled on, even though I think some of the missions are good. You're kind of on, I think, that point of the story where it's kind of transitioning between the revelation in the middle and then what would end up obviously becoming the final climax later on.
Yes, it gets a bit wild at this point, maybe. And I don't know, for me, it doesn't really totally work. It seems like a bit patched together. The story and the missions that will follow, I think the next ones, we know what we're talking about. By the way, the gameplay you will see is from Plutonia. He gave me the permission. Thanks a lot. And yeah, guys, should we already start with some comments from the Teffers? Because I think the mission has divided opinions.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
So let's start with Plutonia. Seth, would you be so kind to read out Plutonia's ideas of the mission?
I would love to. So, from Plutonia. I think the fact that a lot of the geometry is recycled actually helps the mission. Underground levels are always confusing in games, but when you have some familiarity with it already, it isn't so bad. Also, seeing how the mechanists have repurposed the areas is pretty cool. The mission is unique in the way that your main objective is mobile, and you can investigate to find multiple different opportunities all across the level.
Yeah, and that's I've chosen that at the beginning because I think, I put it back in my 12-year-old me playing Thief 2. And of course, I've always skipped the Lost City in the first game, with the famous cheat code. And so far, the game was nice to me, I would say. We had Mission 10, of course, with the highlight. Mission 11, yes, we had this special thing, but that cool reveal with the submarine at the end. And then when Garrett says, like, oh, it's the Lost City, for me, it was like, oh, really? You can't be serious. So I think the idea is actually pretty great. But if you always skipped the Lost City in the first game, then this, and of course I can't blame the developers because okay, they assume that you have played the first game, to its fullest, so you recognize the Lost City, and then you are like, oh, look at this, how it changed. But for me, it's like, okay, it's some underground bricks with some mechanist stuff. So for me, the effect was never given. And then you bring me back to the place I hate the most in the game. So yeah, but how was it for you guys? I know
I
Jake,
think
you played a lot later. So Seth, maybe how was your impression back in the days?
I was waiting for you to remind us that you don't like The Lost City, and I hope that you are ready for me to tell you again that I actually did like The Lost City. I felt like the first time I played Kidnap, I immediately knew it was going to be The Lost City anyway because you get that cave texture, and then you go around the corner and Garrett's like, "I'm back in The Lost City," and I'm like, "Oh, you just caught up, did you?" Um, and yeah,
No,
I
he
thought
doesn't say it like that. He says like, "Oh, it's the Lost City." He's like he knows.
two different reads on the same line. I yeah, I really like that we're back in a place we've already been, and I feel like honestly, I played like on my recent playthrough, I was impressed again by how the areas were reused and like in some cases retextured and relit. Like I think it looks really good and there's a lot of really nice contrasting colors that there weren't in the original game. It's fairly brown, but now you've got all this nice like mechanist blue and there's steel walkways and the carpets. Oh my god, like the living quarters and the carpets I find hilarious. And those are great to walk through. I believe that there's a second story somewhere where there's like a bunch of booze. So apparently a mechanist is
Oops,
just like
sorry.
that's quite all right. A mechanist is just like moonlighting and clearly like drinking nice wine. So there's just lots of fun story peppered throughout the mission that made me happy.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't know. I think that the idea of the whole thing is pretty great. They had good ideas. The like going back to this, and I think if I remember it correctly, this is the first time we get this type of mission, like that you actually have to extract a body from a place and bring it back. Um, so that's a new theme, I would say. Um, and
Well, in
but
this game, because you do in the first game
what
from
was
Craig's
it in the
left.
first?
Basso.
Ah, yes, of
Yeah, so yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah.
But it is the first in Thief 2, you're right on that.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Oh, I totally forgot about. um,
I'll save you. It's fine.
no, that actually no. Then it's really not a good idea they had here. So they recycled already. They recycled the Lost City, yeah, the Lost Shitty, as I would call it, and then they recycle an idea. And but yeah, so um, we started this place, and it's this huge building. And I don't remember, was that building actually also in the Lost City in the original?
I don't believe so. I feel like that's new.
I think that there is a lot of this map that is new. And I think the implication is that the mechanists have dug a bunch of new areas out during their
Mm-hmm.
excavations. The area at the beginning where there's that tip-off conversation where like they basically telegraph Cavador's walking path for you. Um, I think that is a new area.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely. I think the area at the beginning is new, and I don't know what you guys thought, but I kind of like that area and wish it was more like you were saying, Seth. Like something I really liked about the mission was like the contrast of the new colors. Although I'm kind of with you, Alex. Like I'm not a big fan of dark, kind of muddy caves, but I did like some of the new colors that were brought in with some of the mechanist uh, tapestry and furniture and things like that. And I kind of wish that there was more of that in the mission because you have some of that in Cavador's headquarters, living quarters, whatever, what do you want to call it? And then that new area at the beginning. And then after that, it's kind of just some stuff remixed, but it's mostly that industrial cave feel.
Yeah, and I can totally see the appeal of the mix of this new technology everywhere in these old ruins, which is a cool contrast. And I think that maybe there's always also this implication like the mechanists are taking over and they're not holding back even of old cultures. They're spreading everywhere like cancer. Um, and the idea actually is great, and I think the first building um, and the whole thing is not as bad as the original Lost City because there aren't so many. I think are some fire elements, right?
Mhm.
In the
In the
original,
original,
the
yeah.
fire elementals, yeah.
But yeah. So for me, I have to tell I don't have much remembrance of this mission because the game taffed me off. Um, you know, every time when there's a huge gap between original mission episodes, I listen to the former episode. So it was Complicated Cargo. And in that episode, I already said that I already played Kidnap after playing Complicated Cargo right before the episode we recorded it. And
So
I
this
had
must
a
have been torture for you.
no, I actually had a nice feeling. Actually, it was better than expected. That's most of the times, I go in with that. I don't want to do this anymore, and then it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And this time, of course, I had to replay it again. I didn't want to, but I had to because the time in between the episodes was so long. And I think last week it was, right? Or 2 weeks ago, maybe you remember when I told you. So I was like, okay, I'm clever. I just I knock out Cavador, I put him close to the exit in a shadow, and then I explore the whole area, in my own style and speed. And then, I suck up every information and conversations and stuff. So I went through, I knocked out Cavador, and then I wanted to bring him to that place close to the exit. But then there was another mechanist running around. I wanted to knock him out, so I had to drop Cavador somewhere. Knocked out the mechanist, and then I wanted to pick up Cavador again. He was lying there in a very lighted place. Yeah, and then the game had a bug I never encountered before, that I couldn't pick up the body anymore. So
Hmm.
I think, yeah, we have Esamir in the chat, so he knows everything. So Esamir, if you know if that's a common bug or if what causes the bug, please let me know. I don't know what happened, and at that point I was like, oh no, I'm not restarting this again. No, I'm done. I have my Tefers in the podcast on the chat, so they will tell me everything. We have the comments by the guys. Uh, so that's enough. I'm not doing it a third time. And then
Understandable.
but then I was
But
a bit
6
angry.
times the charm.
Then I was a bit angry at myself because there's this quick save tool that was released some months ago by some Taffer on the forums, and I never tried it so far. And that was a point where I was like, oh yeah, if I would have my quick saves, and could go back, yeah, I should have used that tool, and then my problem would have been solved probably. But it didn't. So yeah, it's it's not a good mission. Buggy as hell, doesn't work. Plot stopper bugs. Yeah, it's really not good.
I was gonna
It's a
say,
curse.
speaking of comments, Esmir, is that how you say his name? I don't want to
Yeah,
butcher
I don't,
anybody's
never
name.
know. Eshmir.
Ekmir. Well,
Ekmir.
forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong. He confirmed that the palace is new, and I also kind of to throw it back to Platonia. I'm kind of with you, like Alex, and kind of what we've discussed so far. I think as a plot point, it kind of is just dragging the story out a little bit too long. I do like the whole idea of I'm a sucker in games when you go back to an old area and it's like remixed. And thematically, I do like the idea of like this lost city, ancient civilization, this dangerous, these masks, masks being, repurposed, for evil and things like that. I love the kind of, and that's the theme overall of the game, right? Is kind of technology and nature fighting and corrupting one another. So I think that that's cool, but I'm kind of with you in the overall point of feels kind of like, okay, like now we're gonna look for, Karis's like, third cousin like twice removed after this mission is what it feels like. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of like, it's kind of just stringing the story along. But I don't know. I think I like this mission, question mark, but I definitely don't like the Lost City. With you there.
But since the Lost City is such a huge part of this mission,
Well, I like that I like
explain,
it's
please.
simpler.
Well,
I think it's simpler. Like it's more. Oh, sorry, Seth. I didn't mean
no,
to
you're
cut you
all
off
good.
there.
No, I was gonna say it's like a ship of Theseus, right? Like, at what point is it no longer the original?
Yeah, it's kind of exactly like it's much more easy to navigate, I think, than the original because I mean, it's not perfect with all the tunnels, but in the original Lost City, you're looking at the map and you go by symbols on the map, and then on the actual obelisks or whatever, or the stone towers. In this one, at least, you have a map that shows you the tunnels. It's not perfect. I mean, there was a couple times when I was like, okay, am I going north? Am I going east, west? Like, where am I going? And I'd have to look at my map, and I was like, oh, I'm in site number 6 or whatever right now. So, but I feel like it's easier to navigate than the original, and the layout makes a little bit more sense in my mind, which is why I like it more than the original. But it's still, yeah, it's reused content, which is kind of has its perks, I think, and its negatives, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I think
I don't expect like a Zelda Tears of a Kingdom overhaul, but I don't know. It's yeah, yeah. But Seth, sorry, you wanted to say something.
Well, I think a huge advantage of retrofitting the area with all of like the mechanist fittings is that it creates new landmarks that weren't there in the original. So when you're playing this time, the first time you went through, it's kind of all brown and maze-like, and even though there are some landmarks, I still feel like it's hard to navigate, and I think most people feel that way. But in this one, every area has a unique walkway setup and a unique like archaeological apparatus. And also the enemies are like very concentrated inside the build sites and not so much on the paths between them. So I found that this one is actually a lot easier to navigate than the original, even though the map
Yep.
leaves something to be desired.
I also think that it's yeah, easier to navigate, especially because the places are more distinguished. You can see, okay, this is this place, and there is this this light standing around or whatever. So there are more landmarks that help you. Then you have this map. I still find it a bit confusing. Sometimes I thought like, okay, now I have to go into that direction, so I must go from site 6 to 7 or whatever. And then I landed in 4. Just I don't know if it was really those numbers, um, but yeah, it's fine. If once you get the hang of it and you figure it out, then I think it's pretty easy if I remember it correctly from my first playthrough for this episode.
Question for you guys.
Of course.
Where did you find this is what I think is interesting about this mission. Where did you find Cavador? Like you said that you found him, Alex, and then you couldn't pick up the body and you had that glitch. Where did you encounter him first?
In the Lost City.
I mean, like what's of course. What site? Because
I
the
don't
first
know. It's somewhere between 7, 8, 9, something like that.
Okay. See, I
Yeah.
found him back at his little hideout because I didn't even know when I first played this mission, which I was going to say is interesting. I didn't even realize that he was on patrol because I think I missed the conversation. And then I was like, okay, let me look for him. And by the time, because how I usually play Thief is like, I like to explore everything, get all the loot and all that stuff. And so by the time I was ready to go get him, he was at home. Like he was locked in his bunker. So then it was like people were like, "Oh, yeah, you can get him when he's like patrolling." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "I didn't know that." So I find that interesting.
So what? But then it wasn't game over for you.
No, it's just much harder because he's pretty well guarded inside his little compound because he's got guys in the room with him. So I mean, ideally bring a flash bomb with you, at least one.
Yeah, that
And
one
there's
normal mechanist and that one with the golden helmet, right?
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, and there's a couple on the outside because he's like behind. There's a door, and then there's a couple that are kind of like on the outside and guarding him. So it's much harder to get him with the cameras too because that's one of my annoyances in this level, not to get off track, but some of these cameras in this level are very hard to find like blind spots.
It's Cavador's posse.
Yeah.
Life of the posse.
That's good. But yeah, like there's in this mission too, I feel like if you shoot a camera, everyone hears it. So it's very hard to cameras in this mission are no good, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are a little pain in the ass. If you look at the gameplay right now, I think the last time I played it, I picked them up there. But everything looks the same. I don't know. But in the first time where I had the positive experience, it was it's hard to explain. Like how do you? That's the shame about this mission. You know, what do you explain? Yeah, there were stone walls and some runes. And yeah, I don't know how to explain. And of course, I didn't remember which side I was at. But it was pretty far behind. I think, you know, pretty deep into the architecture. That there was a very long dark tunnel that curves a bit and splits at the end. And behind you are some runes with some interesting notes, I would say, in the back. But that's what I remember. Maybe we can see it on the gameplay, and then I can say, "Oh, this like Leonardo
Yeah.
DiCaprio meme."
There it is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Ekmir in the chat clarifies this about the posse. Says 3 guards on expert, all named Bob Andromed. Bob Jr. the second.
That's such an interesting detail.
Oh yeah. Are they really called that? Ah, really? Yeah. Now I read the full comment. Sorry, I have so much to overlook here. So yeah, if you guys keep an eye on the chat, that's
Yep.
great.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. Good.
Yeah, and Esme also said that the bug is common. And Stealth Dogs joined us. Good evening, sir. So yeah, the cameras are hard, but how did you guys approach this? Or Seth, how did you approach Cavador?
So I don't remember the first time I played the mission ever, but
Of course.
Jason Reimke, MCR, as you're referring to him, he highlighted something that I forgot to mention. There's a readable that is also a trigger, and that readable causes Cavador to begin walking his route around the dig sites. And if you don't read it, he stays at Site 7, and it is a lot easier to find him.
Of course, is that one that actually tells you about his roots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually just avoided reading that like a smart guy and just went to Site 7 and it made my life a lot easier.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's true. What a shitty mission.
Hey,
Look at it. There's lava.
I wonder why. So that would be the question I would ask is why would you have that as a trigger and not just have it start on level
Like
start?
when the mission starts, yeah, that would make more sense. And also, it would be, I think, an improvement of the mission. Speaking of it being a shitty mission, where he gets to the compound and maybe stays there for like a few minutes, and then he goes back. And I don't know how complicated that is. Somebody who knows more about Drawmed could answer, but have him kind of re-patrol because I think that would be, that would be a lot more interesting than having it be like, oh, you got 5-10 minutes or whatever it is to like knock him out when he's traveling, and if you don't, then he's locked up pretty tight.
If you don't know what's going on and what you have to do, especially in Thief, that can happen. Yeah, I think you're totally right. That is a strange decision that they don't loop his routes, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that would be better. Again, I don't want to speak for, it seems like that would be possible. But, to have him loop around, it's just kind of, it's one of those things where in a lot of missions you have an opportunity, right? Like a guard will turn and then turn again, and, they'll have kind of a predictable pattern that they'll repeat. But his is like a one-time routine that once it's done, like, oh, that's it.
I
Oh, and
wonder
if you
if they
walk in the back door, you come in behind the whole posse. Casimir says James.
I see that.
I wonder
The
if they
back door.
aren't I wonder if they weren't trying to go for something different than the final product and that the trigger is indicative that they were going to have him perhaps run different routes or perform different tasks. and then like they
Oh,
cut that feature. and left it there.
Ekmir, not to interrupt you, but Ekmir just clarified in the comments they patrol a different route per difficulty level.
Interesting. That makes
Yeah.
complete sense. Then you would need a trigger that would basically like get the difficulty level you're on. I assume that's so interesting.
Wouldn't it also
Now,
start, like guards are placed in different places and things from the beginning of a mission? So why shouldn't he have a different route through the level?
My
is it
assumption is
shorter or longer? I wonder.
I wonder too. My immediate assumption here is that you would have to put those routes in an array and then have a trigger that checks what difficulty level you're on and picks the correct array of nodes.
Okay, you're more into this programming thing, but I wonder. It seems more. But yeah, programming is not easy, and game creation also. But so why don't we read out another comment? I think maybe so. We have Kubrick had a very long post on the forums. Thanks for that. So maybe we should go through it step by step. I think he has some interesting points of it. But yes, but Seth, you didn't really tell how you got him, right?
Oh, I just went into Site 7 and I whacked him and then walked
Because
in.
you didn't
Okay.
trigger the
Okay.
thing. Yeah, he didn't trigger the
Okay.
thing. So
That's
you had
the
the
full
easiest
story.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, he cheated. No, but
I'm an efficient taffer.
actually, yeah, but that's the thing. If you don't know, of course you read that. You want to get some clues on what's going on, and the readables are there for you to read, and yeah, it's an interesting decision. But I also believe that it's more from a technical point of view, not a decision they made, or maybe they did. I don't know. They were short on money, and well, so
Short on money, short on time.
yeah. Kubrick said on TTLG, I love two things about it. I think the gimmick of finding someone that's doing rounds is lovely, as the combination of runes taken over by the mechanists. I like when gameplay aspects that are usually on the background are put forward. Most of the time, patrols are a simple loop that is used to pinpoint one of the many moving minor dangerous points, the guards, that you need to deal with. But with Brother Cavador, the patrol is made visible. You care about where he is. His loop is relevant to you. Yeah, is it a loop? I don't think so. We already figured that out. Instead of only when he's literally in front of you, as it is with the guards, and it's also literally highlighted for you with green lights. That's
What?
how. Yeah, didn't you know?
No.
It's kind of a strange feature. Like, uh, the area where he is in, there are green lights showing it to you.
Like the mechanical light, like the one that goes from like red to green. Is it that one?
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that's
think
Yeah,
I did know that
Cavador's very extra. He's got a gold mask, he's got a posse, he has disco lights whenever he enters the room.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like he has an air tag on him with him all the time.
Yeah.
Or a mech tag.
It's a mechanic. It's a mechanic that's literally like not in the game that I can think of anywhere else. If it is, someone feel free to correct me. I'll, if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's really many missions in the series where it's like a character goes into a room or is in an area, and like you said, Alex, he's got some sort of like fob on him or some sort of like magnetized thing that just like activates triggers the lights. So it's kind of interesting, but it's
Can
like
I-
the game really doesn't show you that.
And
Can I
what's
throw
the
a guess out
reason?
there? I have a guess. I
What
have a game design
technical
guess.
or because I wonder like what's the reason in the lore?
I think it's technical. I don't think it's lore. I think that the designers were trying to program a long route that changed on each difficulty, and they needed to debug that route. And how do you debug it? You put lights on to tell you when they're traveling the route that you expect them to. And I bet that they just left those lights in at the end and turned them into a feature. I think it's a debug option. That's my game design theory.
Okay.
Hmm.
But then I want to know like what is the explanation in game?
It's like to get the workers on track. It's like, oh, like Cavador's here, the light's on. Like you better get to work, better keep digging. I don't know.
But
It'd be
Yeah,
kinda-
there's a
isn't that
readable.
isn't that counterproductive?
No,
because
there's a readable that says that there's lights that will come on to herald his coming, and I think the implication is that Karis keeps asking for more stuff faster, and they don't want the inspector to come through and see people slacking. So the lights come on, and everyone's just like, "Oh, hurry, get to work."
yeah,
It's pretty
but
funny.
isn't it counterproductive? So did it, were they installed on on his behalf on Cavador's, or are they installed from the workers? So that it's useful to them.
Well, I think they just need people not to get punished and crippled. So at this point, they're like, "We got to come up
No,
with a solution."
because if Cavador insists on this, then it's like then they are like, oh, it's red light, so we can just be lazy. And then when it turns green, they Dick, and then he's gone, or let's have a cigarette, or a macarette or whatever they smoke. um, you know, um, I don't know. It doesn't make sense on both ends, in my opinion. It's not actually, yeah, you are aware of his presence, but for what purpose? So if he's not there, and then isn't it better that a worker always has the feeling, that someone is watching over his shoulder, but he's never sure?
Stealth Docs, I was gonna say, says in the comments, the fun begins when Cavador and his crew get stuck at a point between sites, which happened to me once. It's I think understandable based on what we're talking about and based on what you were just saying, Alex, with like the kind of goofiness of the lights and everything like that. It just seems very like patchwork with like the systems of this mission. I mean, you kind of have a mini version of that at Courier, right, with like different patrols, but this one's much more complicated because you have to take the body and stuff like that. So
At the beginning of the mission, the first conversation you hear, one of the mechanists is saying, I can't remember why they're saying it, but they're like, I need to find Cavador. And then someone's like, huh, don't you know? We have a fancy light system to tell you where he is. Use the light system to go find him, sister. Which is just
Ah,
the funniest thing to say.
that's actually, yeah, that's an explanation that actually makes sense. Like in those huge caves, you want to find your master or whatever, and then you can go by the lights. um but still, I don't know, but I think the idea that you just said, like maybe it was a technical thing, they left it in there, um and then they left it in as a feature, that makes sense to me.
That's my assumption. Like when you're designing stuff in games, you will often have like lines print out to the screen that tell you actions are occurring. But I don't know if you can print lines to things in Dromed. Like I know you can do text strings, I guess. But anyway, the short version is I think it might have just been an expedient way to show it in game that didn't need text and they just kept it.
Hmm. But since you guys played it more intense or read more about it, is there anything? I don't know. You know what? We go on with Kubrick's comment. Um, so the next thing he says is aesthetically, both the aspect of revising a map, or revisiting a map you already knew but changed, and that being old precursor, runes taken over by mechanists, I'm really attracted to. I love the philosophical reading of the infinite hunger of industry, especially considering the proto-capitalist vibes of the mechanists taking over even the literal runes. He uses words I'm really having trouble with. Pure delusion? Is that a word? Do you write it that way? DEL,
I'm trying to find the exact word
deteriorization.
reading.
The virus
Pure
of
delusion deterritorialization.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, and no, yeah, I think we discussed that already. And as I said, I think that it's like, the wait, those are those the tunnels? I think in those tunnels somewhere I picked them up in my first playthrough.
There it is. There's the meme.
But I'm not. No, everything looks the same. No, it's a different tunnel. Yeah, the virus of modernity taking over not only the medieval world of Thief, but even the antiquity. What are the mechanists if not that? Too bad the mission itself is a bore. Finally. You either knock out everyone as you go, having to hide every single body so that Cavador and his team don't find them while you're trying to get at them, or stay put like 15 minutes waiting for them to appear. I think Stealth Dog just said, like, there I am waiting for 30 minutes. Or you get to them quickly by blind luck. The location indicator never really served me. And in any case, dragging the guy is insufferable, either because you have to move at a snail's pace while dodging the guards you didn't knock out before, or because you did knock them out before, so it's boring as hell. A mission full of great ideas and boring execution, 5 out of 10 for me. I think this sums it up really well, in my opinion. Great idea, but the execution is like a bit of a bumper.
Yeah, I think we have some common themes, I think, between ourselves in the comments so far. I think a lot of us like the thematical idea of the mechanist digging up the lost city, and some of the ideas of going back and exploring through. But I think some of the execution, and you, I think, alluded to it earlier at the very beginning of the show, Alex, about how this was kind of this point in the game where the missions kind of got like this, and due to extenuating circumstances with the development of the game and stuff like that. But we're getting kind of to the point where some of the ideas are kind of like, yeah, probably could have used more time in the oven, probably could have used another revision. And I think that the developers would probably agree. But yeah, I think the idea is good in terms of the theme, but some of the gameplay elements could use work.
I have an interesting observation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I may be so bold as to say it's interesting. So, Thief 2 came out in 2001, right?
2000.
2000. That makes this even more interesting. The same year, Hitman Silent Assassin came out. And I think that Thief 2 might have beat Hitman as having an early go find your target who is patrolling and take them to X location gameplay. Because in Hitman, I don't remember if the first game has enemies that actually go to different locations in the map. Hitman has really complicated ways to kill your enemies and make it look like it's an accident. I think Hitman 2 might have been the first Hitman game to do that. So I think that Thief might have actually kicked off a really interesting thing that became a mechanic in stealth games, which is that, like, you have a mobile target and they could be at any of these places, and you need to do something to that target or get them to go somewhere or get them to die, whatever the whatever the objective is. But yeah, other games have since done that, and I think Thief might have been the first.
Well, correct. Thief came out in first in the United States, and I think Hitman did as well. And they came out. Thief 2 came out in March of 2000, and Hitman, the first Hitman game, came out in November of 2000. So
Yeah, that's very close.
quite a long time. Yeah, close.
Like, they would be in development at the same time. There probably would not be any way that the devs could have met up for coffee and discussed their intentions,
Yeah, especially since IO Interactive is in Europe.
Precisely.
Yeah.
People from Europe and America can never speak.
Yep.
Well, it's both Eidos though, which is interesting too. Both
Yes.
Eidos games.
Oh
There's a
yeah, that's
connection.
true. It was an Eidos game. Yeah, but I don't think since Hitman, I think was in development since it was a new title with I think it was a unique engine.
Yeah.
And stuff. So it was way longer in development. Thief already they had everything and they knew how to work their tools. So I think it's a coincidence, I would say. And the execution, Plutonia.
Plutonia says I'm proven wrong, and that Hitman Codename 47 does have patrolling targets with special routines.
Yeah. Yeah, he's right. Or in the
So
hotel, I think sometimes you get surprised by some people because you didn't see that routine earlier or in another playthrough. So yeah, so they were both on that same route. Yeah.
Well, here's an interesting connection. Not to put too much on the whole thief. Jonas Enneroth has a credit. He was the producer of Hitman. Was also a producer on Thief the Dark Project. So they actually do not Thief 2, but these both franchises share a producer. I believe he's also given a producer's credit on Thief 2.
And Stealth Dog said Thief 2 was also the first stealth game with a crafting system. But that's a topic for another podcast.
Oh boy.
This is some interesting cross-pollination.
So speaking of Jake, we had the conversation some days ago. Where I said, "Oh, that's interesting. We need to do the comparison between Chasing the Courier.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
and this one. And how did we come to that conversation? What was the main idea?
I think one of the things I was thinking of was you have a couple of things. You have both maps are reused, right? You have Ambush to Courier. Ambush is the first time the map is used. And then you have the Lost City, which is obviously in the first game. And then you have this mission, Kidnap. And you also have the idea of changing patrol route. And I think, like Ekmir stated, you have a patrol route that changes on difficulty, which is also something both of these missions have in common.
Yeah, and then today, while I was cleaning the dishwasher or something like that. I was thinking about it, and I thought, since Chasing the Courier was already a theme used in Thief 1 and in the same environment, in a city environment, and it was not a very good mission. I think, wouldn't it have been better if in this location, the Lost City with mechanists around, there you need to follow someone, and that in a city environment, to kidnap someone would have been more interesting. So you have maybe to knock someone out at a bar, and then you have to drag the whole body through the city with all the guards.
That would be cool.
Maybe there's a goal that don't knock out more than 3 or 5 guards, or the whole city will be alarmed or whatnot. So you cannot knock out everybody before. And then wouldn't that be more interesting? And then maybe you have to drop the body in a canal so you can activate some gate or whatnot.
Or take it back to, sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking, take it back to, if thinking about reusing assets, take it back to Garrett's apartment. Obviously, you don't want to reuse assets, but if you want to reuse the area or kind of keep it to where it's more manageable, and then explore kind of what you're saying, Alex, which is having I think that's very interesting. I actually really like that idea, taking somebody in plain sight, kidnapping somebody in plain sight. I think is really interesting. So it's
Yeah, but then the city environment wouldn't have used, or another city environment wouldn't have been used for the same kind of mission, to follow someone. Even if the outcome is, of course, different. In Thief 1, you come to Ramirez's place, and here you read a note, and then you follow someone else. But still, I think that the idea just, following someone through the Lost City, and following them, and maybe wait for a certain interaction or a conversation between Cavador and whatever, would have been more interesting, in my opinion. And then you could have made changes to some boring stuff, switched them, and then maybe it would have been more interesting. I don't know. And then maybe if you need to follow him, then maybe it would have made more sense with those lights.
What if he's also not who you think he is? What if he is I don't know, what if he's being kidnapped, or what if he is some sort of twist rather than he's being held hostage or something like that, or he's got some sort of, I don't know, some sort of twist to it where he's just not just an evil dude who's just in a like you were saying, Alex, you follow him and you're after answers more than you're after I gotta knock him out and take him somewhere.
I think something that might be more fun. I think I should preface this by saying I think dragging someone somewhere is not fun altogether. In that I don't think it creates tension. I think it just makes you slow and annoying. I think a much more interesting but complicated implementation of the same objective would be blackmail someone and then make sure they walk from A to B and then program gameplay that allows you to basically like keep them on their path and stop them from fleeing. I think that kind of like traveling maintenance could be a lot more fun and flexible than just knocking someone out and carrying them. But I don't know if that kind of thing could have been possible at this time. So maybe I'm just thinking with too much of a blue sky, you know?
Blue Sky Productions.
Yeah, and there is no blue sky in the Lost City. But yeah, I think in my opinion, it maybe would have made things more interesting because
Actually, Stealth Docs has a good idea. I was going to say in the comments, he says, thoughts on a better objective. Stealing a document, item from Cavador without alerting him. I like that.
Definitely more thiefy.
yeah, but that on the other hand, would have been a very normal standard objective. Steal something. Here, you're stealing a body. This is the idea is cool. But I think the tension is a different one. I think it would have been more exciting to carry this body through the city. Because you are in a normal environment with civilians around and stuff, and you are carrying a body through that public area. This is underground. Everything that's happening here is kind of criminal.
Yes, it's
and
so
so
true.
you're just one of the many bad guys down here. And oh wait, there to the left, I picked him up. There, the other way around. There, that's
The compound.
Yeah, there I got him, I think. But but I could literally say that in every scene. Oh no, wait! I think it was there.
No, wait, it was here. No, it was there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you found Alex. You found him in like 6 different places.
yeah.
He's got twins.
I think it's clear at this point that all of Alex's visitations in the Lost City have blended together into one horrible
It's
trauma
just
for him.
one pile of shit. No, and then you go down there, and then to the left and right, and then at the far end there, somewhere behind here, there's a tunnel, and there I picked him. Yeah, go. Oh, Plutonia, you're disappointing me.
Speaking of Plutonia, he says there's blue sky in this level. You can literally see blue sky through the exit doorway. Smiley face. It's true.
No, but there. Yeah, I think isn't he coming there with his guys? Yeah, exactly. And some meters before, I was a bit faster than Plutonia because I didn't give a shit about this ghosting stuff. Nice hit, by the way, with the arrow there. And one thing I think is very funny. Yeah, Kevin with his ugly pipe in his mouth. That's a very strange thing.
I just want to laugh at it. I just want to draw attention for a moment to the fact that Plutonia struggled to take that guard down in front of the lava, and it kind of looked like the guard was just permanently blinded and traumatized by gas before finally going down.
But what I found really strange in the briefing, Cavador does look anything but a mechanist. Or isn't he the guy standing on the balcony? And the cameras, like, the views from above? Yeah, he looks, I imagine, like, the mechanists, since they're so modern and, they want to get rid of everything natural and human, they would shave, like Karis is shaved. And I could imagine they all have bald heads, so they're wearing their strange hats anyway. And so then his picture of him in the briefing, he looks like, I don't know, some Santa Claus with a strange helmet.
I didn't realize that was a pipe. I didn't know what that was. I was like, what is this contraption on his face?
That's why he's wearing a mask. He's got to hide his fabulous mustache from the establishment that wants him to shave it.
Yeah, but that's not my question. But don't you think, or do you agree that the way he is painted in the briefing totally does not resemble anything I would imagine a mechanist looks like?
I think that it sets a bad expectation for the level too, in that you're looking for who you see in the briefing, not some guy in a mask, right? Like,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I guess you could say though, like to kind of look at the other side of that, he's the great like inventor, and he's maybe a little bit eccentric. And like Stealth Docs just said in the comments, he's out in the wilderness, no time to shave. Like he's too busy working on his projects and his, his engineering to shave.
Do you think they put this strange snork in his face? Because they didn't want to create an extra model with this beard. Oh no,
Correct.
they could have used that Oprah man singing in the first or in the gold mission. There's a resemblance.
Raul.
Yeah, and no, but I think in the briefing he looks a bit strange, and not what I would expect from a mechanist. But would one of you read out Stealth Doc's experience with this mission? I think it's very funny.
Sure.
Sure.
Um,
Oh, we can't both do it.
we'll do it together. No. I can take it if you want me to, and if you want to do the
All
next one.
yours.
Okay.
Oh, you're
Stealth Doc
so sweet,
says,
guys.
this was the mission that almost put teenage Stealth Docs off the Thief games. I didn't know what quick saving was, or that you could save your game mid-mission. Me and my brother were doing Iron Man runs in Thief before they were even a thing. Our minds were broken by the search for and attempted kidnap of Brother Cavador. Brother Cavador's name is forever burned in our nerve centers, a focal point for pain, despair, and rage. I will say two positive things about Kidnap as a mission. After I got frustrated with my silly Iron Man attempts, Kidnap provoked me into trying the first Thief game, which, as it turns out, taught me a lot more about how to be stealthy than Thief 2 did as a newcomer to the franchise. I will forever be thankful to Kidnapped for getting me to play what I personally think is the more interesting of the two original Thief games. The second positive aspect of Kidnapped is it's actually a good mission, but only within the context of having been in the Lost City before, recognizing the scale of the Mechanist's operations, and knowing how to quick save.
Yeah. I didn't know quick save back in the days as well, but I at least knew the save feature, so I could go into the menu and do saves there. But without saving, just imagine like playing this game on Iron Man mode without, not having the purpose or the pride in it. And yeah, I can imagine how, the game beat me back in the days with a save feature or a save feature I knew of. So without it, this must have been really, really hard. It's a wonder that he still is into stealth games.
It wasn't too scarring. You know what? When I did my Iron Man run, I did it intentionally. So I was trying to do it. This was definitely one of the harder missions I remember doing an Iron Man run of, because I also wanted to collect enough loot for later missions in the game. And it's very hard to do this mission without dying while trying to go to all the different sites because of the cameras and the different robots and stuff like that. And yeah, it's this is a really hard mission to, I think, to Iron Man. And I mean, Platonia tries to like Iron Man and Ghost, so this is definitely one of the harder ones in the game for sure. I think it took me about like 35 minutes, but that was like with constant restarts, retries, attempts.
Yeah, Plutonia took 39 minutes or maybe 38 or something with a briefing. But yeah, I think in many areas there are many guards as well, and they are all cross-watching.
Yeah,
makes
there's
it
not a lot
hard.
of blind spots.
Yep.
No, and I'm a chronic blackjacker too, so like that has its own complications for a player like me.
Yeah, so the mission is kind of a mix. Somehow it's hard, and at the same point, yeah, of course, it's always what your approach is, like how you approach the game, what mode you put on yourself. Um, but still, I think it can be boring if you have to wait all the time, because it's really hard to find a blind spot and a shadow and move, and then you have this body maybe on your shoulders that is slowing you down. And I think you can. Do you have a speed potion? I think, and maybe you can find one or two in the mission. but still, it's yeah. And if you knock out everybody, then as commented before, it's really hard or really boring just going through. I think at the end there is this mech beast, right?
Yeah, guarding the
Correct.
exit.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that adds some tension somehow, but yeah, but you can turn it off as well. So yeah, it's a very strange mission with very mixed feelings, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not the worst or the weakest in the game, but I think that's definitely not as good as stuff like Life of the Party that we've discussed before. And I do think that your idea, Alex, if you have to have a mission in the game where you have to have a body, I agree that it's much more like tense. Like if you have a city environment with civilians and you pick up the body and they're like, guards, like come quick. There's a crazy man with a body, like or something like that. Where the like I think it was what you said earlier was funny and true. It's like everything going on down there is criminal, so it doesn't really like kidnapping really doesn't it's not like ooh it's you gotta kidnap a guy. It's like yeah, but in a cave. So it's like it's fine, like it's not really a big deal. Whereas like yeah, if you have to like take him from I don't know, even if you take him from like a compound or like a mansion or something, but from like the fifth floor, like say Life of the Party style, like even that is better. But I do think dragging a body through perhaps the city is probably the best because then you have to kind of like I gotta hide in the sewers and like I take the body down in the sewer and hide and wait for the guard to patrol. And I think that's stuff that you could do in Dramed and it's fine. Like it's not you have alert states for bodies being found and I don't think it would require any kind of special technical juice that the game doesn't already have.
Yep. Um, and for me, there is not much to say about this mission.
It's like kidnapping someone in the Arctic. Who would notice?
No, what we had that in the last original mission episode for complicated cargo that we were wondering like, okay, in the original game, Garrett gets here somehow by foot, and now the mechanists need a submarine to get there. So maybe with the chat, maybe you guys have an explanation for that. But I always wondered like, how does that make sense?
Well, Garrett has a secret keeper key to get in, whereas the mechanists need to get a lot more equipment and stuff in, so they have to find another way in. They can't go through the convenient keeper entrance.
But he is traveling for days in the submarine,
It's
as
true.
far as my
Because the
understanding.
mechanists are idiots.
Yeah, really, what are they doing? Like, oh yeah, the mechanists would have, now I get it how people thought that they found a way to India through the west. Yeah. and
Correct. And then
and
we're in the Caribbean or the West Indies.
yeah, right. Oh yeah, let's call them Indians, and let's call them Indians today, even if we know. Louis C.K. did a great bit on that. Like, nah, you're Indians.
I've seen that. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. But yeah, I was gonna say it is kind of strange. I think like and that I think goes back to we've discussed this before on I think OM episodes, but how the game designers have discussed this pretty openly, how it was like cool idea, like then work around the cool idea. So I'm sure like the cool idea from the last mission was like submarine Bond style underwater base. Like cool. Like just on a chalkboard or on a whiteboard that sounds cool. But yeah, like it doesn't really make sense because it's like why are we here? It's like oh, because it's cool, like but it's not. And I think I mean Stealth Doc's didn't get into it, but I mean he kind of stated in his comment he prefers the first game, and I know that's what we've discussed before on episodes about people who prefer the first game because it it kind of the story goes first and the missions. I know some of us prefer the second game, but it's kind of the trade-off of that approach.
Yep. And but still, Azimir said that the docks are already on the maps in the first game, but still, why are they traveling for days and that Garrett gets there by foot? I don't get it.
It's all the speed potions.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. But Adrian J had a comment back at the top. So Seth, I think now it's your turn.
Sure, Adrian J. Glad to see you do another original mission.
At least one
Kidnap
of us.
Kidnap is, from a gameplay point, a solid mission, and I really like that they made it much easier to find your way through it than the original Lost City. Having said that, the Lost City is by far my least favorite mission, and Kidnap doesn't do enough to really sell it as a radical improvement. I just prefer the city levels, because they seem more focused and exciting with their corrupt city wardens, dark secrets, haunted cathedrals, etc. I think I really would have enjoyed some mummy-type enemy whose sleep has been disturbed by the Mechanist's noisy machinery. Instead, the Mechanist presence adds surprisingly little, and it seems like the precursor lore has been dumped in favor of an enemy whom we all know too well by now.
Yeah, that was Seth and the machine in the background. Thank you very much.
Oh, my fridge must have kicked in. My apologies.
It was the Mechanist fridge.
Yeah, yeah, and there we are again. As Seth living in a medieval steampunk environment. You
Yes,
would
it's
you would love to live in that area, right?
I
Like
would have no complaints.
you would have been a mechanist and one of the worst. Like
No, I'm a hammer, bro.
no. You would have said, "Oh, all this modern stuff," that you would have turned your stick between a rope until it gets some. Could you hear in
Flames.
my voice that I actually made the movement? And so you can make some fire with the wood. Um,
Seth, I think you'd be a hammer. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to tell you, but I think you'd be a hammerite based on my perception. I think you would be. I think you would think that the Mechanist. You'd be like that guy in shipping and receiving at the dock or at the one container and be like, yeah, that's just sacrilegious corruption, heresy.
Yep, total
nah,
Luddite.
Seth is a goofy keeper.
Keeper of ancient artifacts.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. It's like you can have all the anachronisms you want and justify it however you like.
No, but you keep everything, you keep old stuff, and I can imagine that it's like all those serious guys there, and they never want you in the meetings and stuff. So you always get some special tasks.
Yes,
you
very
have to
special.
you have to
Oh,
fulfill. Like they are all sitting there and are listening to the little girl, and then you're like, what? Huh? What did she say? Um,
Stealthdoc stated he kind of responded to Adrian J's comment. He said, "The mummy's a neat idea, but we can't have monsters triumphing over the Mechanist robots, though. It goes against the whole theme of Thief 2's story." I agree. Like a mummy's a cool idea. Like when I was reading Adrian's comment, and Adrian, I think that's like a good idea. Like I feel like a mummy would fit in really well with like the Thief like universe. I think it'd just be finding like a better place maybe to put that enemy. But I like the idea like a lot.
I always found mummies in fan missions so goofy and out of place.
I think you
No,
could do it right if you do. It's a careful thing.
then
I
it would
liked
make
Beneath the
sense.
Sands.
If they would have reached Egypt with this submarine, that's why they traveled for days. That would make sense. But
Could be a weird
okay,
hammer
yeah,
spin on
of
it.
course, like the Lost City is like somehow mixed with some Egypt style, with this hieroglyph stuff, and so
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would make sense in that area. Yeah, I agree.
You just
But
wouldn't. I don't think be able to like Stealth Doc said. I mean, it put it to where like, oh, the mummies beat all the mechanists and their robots. It's like, well, then why isn't Victoria just recruiting an army of mummies like to win? But I think like you could, maybe there'd be like a little secret area with a mummy in it or something.
I think she would more recruit an army of mommies, um, plant mommies. Yeah, I think she treats her little plants more like that. But Esme says, turn the mummy into a masked slave. Um, that would be very interesting. But
Be
that,
even funnier if the mummy recognized Garrett from his last visit.
yeah, right.
Yeah, you've been here before. But I think also to get back to Adrian's comment, kind of he's again echoing what we were kind of been stating, like at the end of his comment, dumped in favor of enemy whom we know all too well by now. It's like exactly. Like it's just you've now had a couple different missions in a row of like, we gotta find out Carius's plan. This is like part whatever of like trying to find out the plan. It's like I feel like now in the story, we should be getting to the point where we kind of are confronting him, and it's not doesn't happen yet.
Whose voice was that you just made?
Which one?
No, you plan. Who was that in your head?
I don't know. I just was like, I think just like just this kind of the generic Scooby Doo kind of guy in a costume. I don't know.
Oh, one of the next missions would make sense then with masks. Um,
Oh, that's true. Yes, you're right, because it's always a guy in a mask.
yeah,
Can we
Gary
just cover those as one mission?
I thought of that as well. I don't know. Let's see. I think we can. We will see. Look, let's see what the comments are or not. Yeah, but that's another thing. But guys, is there? I think there was one little comment by Artemis himself. Kidnap was one of those mid missions. I put it in mid because it could take hours to complete, and ghosting it was never a piece of cake. Yeah, I think
Agreed.
Clatremus took about 2.5 hours.
It's a total
And
feast or famine mission. Like you're either enjoying it or you're like Cavador got lost on the way and it's taking you a century.
You're just checking your watch. Garrett's just checking his watch for Cavador to show up. Like, he's gonna be here any minute.
a mechanical watch,
He's got a
really
maybe he has like
huge thing on his arm.
yes, like a sundial.
Yeah, and he can't use that except at that one point Plutonia mentioned.
Yes, at the exit tunnel, he has to like point the sundial and like wind his watch. Stealth Dog says, I think this is interesting. Stealth Dog says, I always had it in my head canon that Gareth Din was buried by the trickster like the Kershaw. That's interesting.
What is
Never know.
Kershaw? Or what?
Oh, it's the from Thief Deadly Shadows, the city with the fish people who were like forsaken by the trickster.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, they were strange. But yeah, we will never cover Thief Deadly Shadows, I think. Not because it's a bad game. I like it, but yeah, I think we won't do this podcast until then.
Missions are also a lot smaller in that game too, much less substantial.
Yeah, but I don't want to enlarge this episode artificially because, as I said, from my point of view, there's not much to discuss anymore. I think that, in my opinion, the mission doesn't give us much to talk about. But
Yep.
maybe if you guys have any points, then shoot. But I'm done. I'm out of stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. Just a couple of trivia points that I found.
That's
Site
always nice.
5, there's a room with lava that you can swim in, but there's no purpose for it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know why it's there, but
I missed that. That's so funny.
Yeah,
It's just cold lava, I guess.
No, I think it's a bug, or yeah, I forgot. But I remember that from my last playthrough, or my first last, that it happened to me as well. It's a pretty
I have
tight
a-
area, right?
yeah, it's pretty small.
Yep.
I have an interesting one. Towards the beginning of the level, you hear the ambient sound that plays at the main menu of Thief 2. And that always threw me for a loop in that like it's the main menu sound recycled and I was like this feels very odd. I feel like the game should be on pause.
It's
Where's
kind of
that?
fourth wall breaking.
It's right at the beginning of the mission. There's an area where you hear like the hum, and it might not be the entire mix from the main menu, but it's like I'm pretty sure it's a definite part of it.
I didn't recognize that.
It got me, made me feel weird.
It's kind of fourth wall breaking.
I think another interesting thing is that there is a conversation that implies that the reason Cavador is wearing the mask.
Wait. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's there because the mission or the environment is from Thief 1. So that's why someone made a joke and put it there, the sound. That would be my logical explanation.
Interesting.
It's like the wink from the developers. Hey guys, play
Here
Thief
we
1,
are.
yeah, right?
There's also a conversation, I think it might be the first one in the mission, where somebody says the reason Cavador is wearing the oxygen apparatus is because he's afraid of Burrick breath, which is kind of a funny little note.
Interesting.
I always wonder how that smells.
I don't want to find out.
Also, you can get a guard stuck in the secret room in the Site 4, and he can get himself out even though there's no switch on the inside.
Oh man. See, I was thinking about the existential horror of being trapped in there forever till you die, but I'm happy to hear they can get out.
Guards have AI powers.
Yeah, but that's a common thing in Thief a lot. I just had that in another mission where if you steal a key, but they can still go through the door that is just openable with that key you now have. And yeah, that always annoyed me a bit because I would like to use it for technical, for tactical reasons,
Exactly.
and then it doesn't work. Um, Shame.
I think if you were like redesigning the game or like refixing the game, that would be something that you'd fix, right? Because that's such a strong like immersive simulation type element of like, hey, I'm gonna steal the key off this guy and lock him in, and then he can't get out. Like that's
Yeah, it's
something I
just a
think that
huge
like they would have done.
expectation.
Yep, it's something I think they would have done had they had like the opportunity to, because it just makes sense.
And what I'm now wondering is, so Garrett brings him on a little boat, right?
Yep.
So they travel for days underwater with a submarine. No, now he knows the way back. Of course, he knows he's not an idiot, and he knows. Just imagine like he's coming out of those ruins with a boat, and then it's just like 10 meters of rowing, and then he's there, like, whoop, the city. Welcome
But
back.
he also says at the end of the mission, looks like my old route is still open, which is just kind of a really funny thing to say, as if he's been there many times since.
Yeah. No, actually, it implies that it has been used by him once, and he's like, "Oh, it's still there."
It's just a window too, which makes it even funnier. Like there's so much effort going on, and there's apparently just a window somewhere.
Of course, that makes sense. And then he climbs through it with a body on his shoulder, of course. Yeah. Yes. So on my side, that's it.
Let's call it.
All I got. Yep.
Yep, me too. So yeah, sorry guys if you expected a longer episode, but I think it depends on the mission and how much we can discuss. I could discuss more if I wouldn't have been so frustrated by that bug. And yeah, because I think my approach was not too bad. Like, okay, drag him there and then explore. Of course, I could have still exploring the whole area, but he was lying there in plain sight, and I was so annoyed. And then my motivation was gone. So yeah,
Absolutely. No filler here, unlike Thief 2.
and yeah, maybe you guys can tell us if we should do the next two missions in one episode, or should we still do two? I'm not sure about it. I think we have to decide when playing it. I think we have to play both in a row and then decide like how much content it gives. But I think
Sounds good.
it would make sense to do one, so then you can do the comparison on the fly and not separate it into missions. Especially, those original mission episodes. There can be quite a while in between them. So yeah, but I think that's an interesting idea of what to do. Yeah, but thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks to you guys, and yeah, I hope you still liked this episode. Kind of, it's not the strongest one, but it's the mission's fault, of course. So see, I have to do everything here, right? So see you around, guys. Bye bye.
Take care.
Wave,
for now.
Seth. Would you please wave to the people?
Peace. Have a good evening.
Ah,
Looks like my old route is still open.
professionals, just 5 minutes.